This week on Retrospect Rewind, we take it back to 1994 with a St. Paul area MLA leaving his party months after the provincial election.
On June 15th, 1993, Liberal candidate Paul Langevin was elected as MLA for the Lac-La-Biche St. Paul riding. But after only 9 months in provincial politics, Langevin says he has had his fill of the Alberta grits.
The decision for me did not come easy.
Paul Langevin says he is leaving the Liberal Party to sit as the only independent MLA in the legislature. Langevin says 9 months ago, the Alberta Liberals campaigned for a balanced budget, free votes in the legislature, and an honest and open government. But he says now it seems the Decore Liberals have changed their tune.
We're not doing that. We seem to be going into the opposite direction. And I have a moral obligation to step aside and say, I will represent my people the way I campaign. I will honor my campaign promises.
Liberal leader Lawrence Decore was quick to respond to Langevin's departure.
He's unhappy that we've taken a direction that he thinks is at variance with what we said during the election. I don't think it is at variance, and the caucus doesn't think it's at variance.
It could be a problem.
St. Paul Mayor John Trefanenko was Langevin's Conservative opponent in the last election. He says the MLA may be jumping the Liberal ship too quickly after such a short time in government.
It's going to be something new for Mr. Langevin because he's only been in politics for 9 months. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see how well he can represent our constituency.
Public reaction to Langevin's announcement was mixed.
Yes, I think an independent might be better.
If he was going to do that, he should have done it right off the bat. He never went for the Liberal Party. But the way he did, I don't like it.
He has to go with what he feels is right for his constituency. He doesn't really have a choice, or he's not going to be voted in next time.
Langevin says he now plans to bring more government attention to issues facing rural Albertans. He says he will give his riding a stronger voice in Parliament with his new independent status. And he says now when he has to cast a vote in Parliament, it will be a free vote following the direction of his constituents instead of a leader he can no longer support.
And now we fast forward to 1998, with producers across the country, including the Midwest, showing interest in growing a new crop.
We're calling it hemp fever. It's like a bit of a gold rush we've had.
Hemp fever has swept across the prairies since Federal Health Minister Alan Rock announced the decriminalization of the crop back in mid-March. Thousands of producers have logged onto the Health Canada websites to find out more about the wonder crop and apply for licenses to grow it. It's a similar frenzy at Alberta agriculture offices.
We've had tons of inquiries. I mean, to the point where in some offices answering machines can't handle it anymore.
All that excitement over a crop with almost no background information. It is known that hemp will be tightly controlled in Canada. Among the regulations, only Canadian Seed Growers Association members will be allowed to produce seed. You must grow a minimum of 10 acres, and THC content must be no higher than 0.3%. THC is what gives marijuana its kick and sits at about 17% in the drug.
Police checks have to be done. The Health Canada wants to know where it is, what you're going to do with it, how you're going to store it. They want to make sure that it's tested so that the drug level in it is at the limits that they've been set so that no one's out there smoking it. And all of these
if you're willing to abide by those rules, Bus says hemp will grow well here in the Midwest, in dry soils and even better in wet conditions. He says it will likely stand about 5 or 6 feet tall in Midwest fields. However, once it's up, how do you harvest it?
We're not really clear on that yet. There's not a lot of data about people taking conventional combines into this stuff. It's always been done with different special equipment, or in places like China, it's all done by hand. So we're still working out that aspect of it. Like the production with Western equipment is something that has been relatively unexplored.
Another big question that needs to be answered is, where will it be processed?
We have fears that some people are going to put in 10 acres of this stuff and then not know what to do with it. But we're trying to allay those fears as much as possible. The principle of good special crops production is first you find a market. If there's no market for it, you might want to play with it, but be prepared to maybe have to throw it all away at the end if you can't find a place to sell it.
Aside from a possible plant in Manitoba, no big industry players have stepped forward to say they'll turn the crop into either oil or clothing. And since the seed market is out of the question for most producers, the fiber and grain markets are the ones most producers will be targeting. Buss says he does not want to discourage anyone from growing hemp. However, he is advising producers to get all the information possible before seeding the crop.
Coming up on Retrospect Rewind. Moving forward to 1998, a Lakeland area MP discusses Indigenous issues. Welcome back to Retrospect Rewind. We start this week's edition of Retrospect in 1994 when a Rough Riders kicker made a trip to Maidstone.
There you go, sweetheart. You have a good day.
When it comes to the Rough Riders, one can say the Riders are Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan is the Rough Riders. Thus, traveling across the province is a key for the club.
Let's face it, whenever you hear the politicians talk, they tend to miss out Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Alberta sneaks in because of the fact that they have so many natural resources and stuff. But really, Manitoba and Saskatchewan, agriculture-based, everything's, it's sort of down-home people, and the politicians aren't particularly attracted to that, unfortunately. So it's nice. It brings an entity to the province, and it would be a shame if this team were to ever be lost.
Ridgway is entering its 14th year with the Rough Riders, and this coming season will be a rebuilding year following the departure of a number of key players such as Austin Fairholm and the latest being Gerald Bayless.
I really didn't want to go through a rebuilding program at this stage of my career, but I mean, those things happen. I can't fault any of the guys for making a move. A few people have said that there's no loyalty in professional sports anymore. Well, I mean, you've got to it's such a short career, you've got to get the money while you can, and the CFL isn't really known for throwing its dollars around, so I don't begrudge the guys making a move. I'm sorry to see them go.
As the small market teams like the Riders lose player after player, it leaves many, including Ridgway himself, wondering about U.S. expansion.
Larry Smith has to make sure that we're playing on an even field, and what he has to do is ensure that those teams are sticking within that salary cap, because if they're not, you will soon find that the Blue Bombers and the Saskatchewan Roughriders will be out of the Canadian Football League, and that would be a shame.
While Ridgway admits this season will be a tough one for the Rough Riders, he feels the game plan is to be Grey Cup bound in 2 years' time when Regina hosts Grey Cup 95.
The Riders did not rebound by the 95 season. They missed the playoffs. The Grey Cup was won by an American team for the first and only time. And now moving forward to 1998, a Lakeland area MP discusses Indigenous issues.
Nearly 50 people met in St. Paul Wednesday to discuss Aboriginal issues. Reform MP Leon Benoit has been traveling with the Lakeland Aboriginal Issues Task Force, gathering suggestions and opinions on problems facing his Aboriginal constituents.
Things have been getting worse over the last 30 years. They're headed in the wrong direction. So if you can get the accountability, I think you can at least start things back in the right direction.
Let's make them accountable for that too, because they are responsible for the band members. That includes the little kids that are going hungry on a reserve. And they're taking investments with our money and putting the profits in their pocket.
And it was the issue of accountability that dominated the day's discussion. Emotions ran high at times, and many of those in attendance were concerned that the money just wasn't reaching the reserves.
They don't tell us where that money goes. They don't tell us how they spend it. For all we know, they could be pocketing it. Eh?
We don't know half the time where our money is going. We know certain figures will be released. This money is coming in, and then we don't see the services we're supposed to be getting.
Wednesday's meeting was part of the final stage of what has become an extensive set of consultations undertaken by the task force this year. The information collected will now become part of a report that will be sent to the Minister of Indian Affairs. It's hoped the report will put some pressure on the department.
There is a total gross mismanagement on our reserve. Lack of information from our leaders They keep telling us that all information pertaining finances or any band businesses is confidential. But as band members, we figure we have the right to know exactly where every dollar is spent and where it's coming from.
The task force is hoping to have the final report ready by the end of this month. From there, it will be up to the Department of Indian Affairs as to what course of action they will take to promote health and prosperity for all Aboriginal Canadians.
Coming up on Retrospect Rewind. Moving forward to 1998, residents are split in Cold Lake as the community eliminates its ward system. Welcome back to Retrospect Rewind. We start Retrospect this week in 1994 as a new seed cleaning plant opens in Battle River.
When fire destroyed the Battle River seed cleaning plant July 6, 1992, the community suffered a great loss. But now farmers in the Paradise Valley area have access to a brand new state-of-the-art facility. Plant manager Mark Casey says the new building is quite versatile.
We've added some things to it. We have bigger equipment. We clean approximately 325 bushels an hour in it. We've added spiral separators for cleaning canola. We put in 10 banks, and we can do approximately 160 to 180 bushels of canola an hour. And in the bins overhead, we put in bean ladders for cleaning pulse crops.
The process of getting seed from truck to truck is now more involved and more efficient.
When they come in, we weigh the grain, dump it in the receiving pit in the main driveway, and it goes up the receiving leg into holding bins overhead. And then it drops down from there by gravity into either the bearder or the indent machine. If there's lots of unthrashed heads and stuff in it, we run it through the bearder first to knock them out. Otherwise it goes into the indent, and basically it scalps the rough stuff off. And from there it drops down to the air and screen machine, which screens out the light and skinny grain. And then after the air and screen, it goes back up onto a gravity separator, which is, as it implies, works on specific gravity. It floats the grain on a cushion of air. The heavy stuff goes to the bottom and climbs the screen and goes to good seed. And any light stuff, or if there's any weed seeds or anything left, they float off the top and go back to screenings.
Since the plant is a cooperative, members have control over the operation. Chairman of the board for the plant, Dick Haydu, says the shareholders can't say enough about the new facility.
On all the feedback we've had through the board, from the board of directors and myself, I think people are quite happy with the seed plant here. It's quite a boom to the area, I would say, especially for the town and the farmers in our area.
And moving forward to 1998, residents are split in Cold Lake as the community eliminates its ward system.
I think it's a little early to abolish the ward system.
There are some mixed feelings over electoral representation in Cold Lake. The Tri-Town area is now amalgamated into one community. And to ensure equal representation between Cold Lake North, Cold Lake South, and the Air Base, a ward system was established for the last civic election that allowed councillors to represent specific areas.
It was the intent of the amalgamation committee that I sat on, as well as others, that the ward system should be a temporary thing to get us through the amalgamation, and then once that was done, that we should revert to election at large to signify that we were one community and could act that way.
Now, town officials feel the three communities have gelled as one, and that it is time to eliminate the wards. Some residents support the move.
The ward system was necessary during the amalgamation process to make sure that each community was adequately represented during the initial amalgamation process. But now that that has largely been accomplished, it seemed to make little sense to divide a town of 12,000 into two halves.
However, some residents disagree, including Councillor Ron Young. He says the communities are still at a very sensitive stage.
In some people's minds, we're already there and we're one community and everything. But in a lot of the residents' minds, they still call Cold Lake South Grand Center and they still call Cold Lake North Cold Lake. And so we're not there yet.
A majority of councillors voted in favor of eliminating the wards and are confident of their decision.
I think that anything that we can do to eliminate the barriers between the communities can only enhance the feeling of being one community instead of being three communities that have artificially been put together.
Coming up on Retrospect Rewind. In 1998, Lloydminster area residents sound off on changes to the Young Offenders Act. Welcome back to Retrospect Rewind. We start off Retrospect this week in 1994, with some in Vegreville concerned over proposed electoral boundary changes.
The naming of a new Midwest constituency raised some concerns last night at a hearing into proposed federal riding boundary changes in Vegreville. Because of a decline in the rural population, the Vegreville riding could soon amalgamate with portions of Beaver River and Crowfoot to form two new constituencies called Crowfoot and the riding of St. Paul-Vegreville. Local Chamber of Commerce spokesperson Jerry Wild says he likes the new name.
But I think it would be a disservice to the people of our area to change the name, particularly because of the high-profile member of parliament that we have had for 25 years, extremely high-profile last 10 years.
But Beaver River Liberal Michael Zaharko thinks the new riding should have a new name, either East Central Alberta or Lakeland. He also told the Boundary Commission the present rep by pop mode of politics is outdated. He says his area has been shuffled into 4 different constituencies in the past 40 years. He told the commission the political views of rural residents should be given equal representation in government as other Alberta cities with larger populations.
Citizens of Canada deserve to have electoral regions with more stability and permanence than we are getting in this part of the country.
All of the recommendations made at tonight's meeting will go into a report, but where that report ends up right now is anyone's guess. Right now, Canada's Senate is considering quashing the $8 million Boundary Commission hearings going on across the country. If that happens, the report will end up at Elections Canada instead of going in front of Parliament. But Commissioner Reiner Knopf says if the process is stopped, it was not a wasted one.
That information is going to be available so that the next time around, however this is done, there will be more startup information. And so in that sense, I think it remains important whatever happens in the Senate.
And now, in 1998, Lloydminster area residents sound off on changes to the Young Offenders Act.
Young people need to be treated as young people who are not responsible for their actions, although they may seem to be.
Thursday night, Lloydminster area residents had their chance to be heard. The topic up for discussion, the Young Offenders Act. Local MPs Jerry Ritz and Leon Benoit organized the meeting. Panelists for the evening included justice critics for both the Saskatchewan Party and the Reform Party, along with Saskatchewan's Minister of Justice. However, there was one notable absence: the federal government.
It's unfortunate that they choose not to come to these venues. It's more important for them to hear the people than it is for us. I mean, from us, they're getting it secondhand. They're certainly welcome to come and get it firsthand, as we are here tonight. But yeah, I'm a little disappointed that they don't acknowledge that these things are going on.
A similar meeting held in the Battlefords back in January also failed to attract any federal representatives. A report detailing that meeting's outcome was sent to the federal justice minister, but has yet to invoke any response.
It appears that the federal Liberal government isn't quite sure what to do with all of the public concern in this area, and we're all waiting for them to take a position so that we can continue the discussion and hopefully make some changes that will help us all.
Would you please perhaps take our concerns as municipal elected officials to Ottawa
to maybe do something with the Constitution, because the reason...
In 1994, then Federal Justice Minister Alan Rock commissioned a 10-year review of the Young Offenders Act. That report, which also includes recommendations, has been in the hands of current Justice Minister Anne McClellan for a year.
In 1994, Lloydminster fire officials are concerned with the number of fires in the community.
Lloydminster's April fire report is in, and many local residents may be burned by the figures. Last month, the total loss of damages due to fire in Lloydminster was $197,700. Chief Ted Gustafson says with those numbers, the city could quickly bypass last year's annual total loss.
For the year 1993, we only had 370-some thousand for the whole year.
Over the weekend, local firefighters responded to 7 fire calls at a cost of $5,000 for local taxpayers. 5 of those fires were brush fires. And Chief Gustafson says 4 of the blazes may have been started on purpose, most likely by young children. He says he wants the kids to stop before someone gets hurt or even killed.
If they don't care, they should start caring, because, I mean, somebody could lose their life. There was a life lost in Edmonton in an apartment block fire due to an arsonist. So, you know, it's nothing to be playing around or fooling around with.
Because of dry, windy conditions, the chief says he would like a ban on all fires in local parks. While that may not happen, he says he hopes parents will teach their children to stop playing with fire before he is forced to press charges.
I don't like to do that, but if we have to, we have to do something.
That's it for this edition of Retrospect Rewind.